The story I'm about to tell you happened last winter. I work as a night guard in an old building that houses the city archive. Usually, my shifts are quiet, checking the floors every 2 hours, inspecting locks, watching the surveillance cameras. Nothing special. That night, the temperature dropped to -20. The wind howled through the old pipes of the building, creating a creepy lullaby. I was sitting in my little room on the first floor, reviewing the camera footage, when I heard it. A faint child's laugh coming from somewhere upstairs. At first, I thought it was just the wind playing tricks on my mind. But the laugh came again. It sounded strange, like it was coming through a layer of water or from underground. I grabbed my flashlight and headed upstairs to check the higher floors. The second floor was fine. The third floor, too. But when I reached the fourth floor, where the oldest archives are stored, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. At the end of the corridor, by the window, stood a small figure, a child, about 6 or 7 years old, in an old-fashioned dress. "Hey!" I shouted, shining my flashlight toward her. But the light, it passed right through her. And then she turned. She had no face, just smooth white skin, like a mask. And at that moment, from every pipe, every ventilation shaft, the same laugh erupted, only now it sounded like the scream of 100 children. I ran for the stairs, but the archive doors began slamming shut on their own. Papers and documents flew into the air, swirling like a tornado. And she glided toward me, never touching the floor. I reached my little room, slammed the door shut, and, trembling, turned on the surveillance monitors. On the screens, I saw dozens of identical childlike figures moving throughout the building. They were emerging from the walls, seeping through the ceiling, appearing from old filing cabinets. The next 6 hours until dawn were the longest of my life. They didn't try to enter my room, but I could hear them. Their laughter, their footsteps, their songs in an unfamiliar language. On the monitors, I saw them dancing in circles in the empty corridors, sliding on the walls, peering into the cameras with their faceless heads. When dawn broke, everything fell silent. I waited another hour before I dared to leave. The building was in perfect order, not a single paper out of place, no trace on the dusty floor. I immediately filed for resignation, but before leaving, I decided to check the archives on the fourth floor. And I found them. Old photographs of the orphanage that used to occupy this building in the early 1900s. In a group photo from 1908, I saw them all. 32 children in old-fashioned clothes. And each of them had a blurry white void where their faces should have been. Later, I learned that the orphanage had suffered a terrible fire that year. All the children perished. Their bodies were never found. Now, every winter, on especially cold nights, people walking past the archive building hear children's laughter. And if you look closely at the windows on the top floor, you can see small silhouettes dancing in the dark. I never worked the night shift again. And you know what? Every time I hear children's laughter outside, I start running. Because sometimes that laugh sounds too familiar, too unnatural.